second LP, won't it?
Well, yeah, we had a mini album out before then,
That's
but
right, yeah.
the second actual full length, isn't it? So we've kind of recorded a couple of tracks towards that, and we're just on the verge of going into to actually finalise it
So,
at last.
do you have a band around you at the minute, or are you working with maybe just one or two other people on this?
I'm working with Andy Richards, who's he's like a keyboard programmer, and he plays as well. He does a lot with Trevor Horn, so with Frankie Goes to Hollywood, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting. It's like very modern keyboard approach.
Well, I thought your first album, Dangerous Music, was interesting, that you were very adventurous in terms of the production. Is this going to be a trademark of this second record too?
I think so, yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot of time passed since Dangerous Music, so it's like more normal today to have like that sort of modern approach, if you like.
I think your stuff reminds me a lot of what someone like Billy Squier tries to do. It's commercial, it's still heavy rock, but the production is very techno and very modern.
Right, that's interesting sort of comparison, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love technology. I'm a technology freak, you know, so...
So you're producing the record as well, then? Are you involved in that side?
Andy and I are doing it together, yeah. You know, Andy's like great I get most of the ideas, and Andy's great at like pulling me back a little bit from the over-the-topness, you know. So it was working well.
That album, Dangerous Music, we've already mentioned, came out on Bronze Records, but to my knowledge, Bronze don't actually exist anymore. So what are you doing about another record deal for this album?
Well, when Bronze finally went broke, which was late last year, Stuart, my manager, decided that it would be a good idea to wait and get the album together before we go out looking for a deal. Having said that, we've been offered some good situations from around the world, so we've decided we're going to do it territory by territory. Right. Starting with Japan, which we've just finalised that situation at last, again, which is great. But we haven't honestly approached anybody over here. So I think we'll finish the album for Japan and then see what the reaction's like to it. You know.
So presumably it will come into this country as an import, it'll be into Europe as an import from Japan?
That's the way it looks at the moment, depending on the, you know, I mean, somebody might turn around with the right situation tomorrow, you never know, you know. But it's just worth waiting. After Bronze, it came so close to taking a dive with the company that it's got to be the right people. They've got to really want to do it, you know, as much as I do.
That's true. Well, that's your own situation, but are you working with other artists outside of this as well?
Yep, lots and lots. Well, at the moment, Robert Plant and I are just like getting to know each other in a writing sort of sense, and that's looking very interesting.
Because there has been talk of a Led Zeppelin reformation, which would obviously include Robert if it happened. Are you aware of this at all?
Not really. As I say, I've met with Robert just a few times now, and we get on very well. And
it seems to me that he's involved in a much more modern outlook these days. He wants to make different sorts of music to what Led Zeppelin were doing, which obviously fits in well with, I imagine, with your concepts as well.
Yeah, I mean, Robert approached me, he'd heard the Dangerous Music thing, and there's like a few demo tapes doing the rounds, I've heard, so, and he liked what he heard. From that, I think, from the modern aspect, and he wanted to get into a bit of that, you know. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, we've mentioned one rumour there with the Led Zeppelin reformation, possibly. We should mention another couple now, one of which said that you might be joining Asia because you played some charity shows with John Wetton and Carl Palmer and various other people. Is there any truth in that at all?
Well, it was strange, really, because it was in Kerrang that John Wetton was doing a talk with somebody, I can't remember who, and he mentioned that he had approached me to join Asia a couple of years ago, and he hadn't, so I called him and said, hang on a minute, you didn't? And he said, well, my manager said he did.
Oh, I see.
So we got to talking, and we met a few times and decided it'd be nice to do a gig. So his wife's heavily involved with music therapy. So we did just 3 nights for music therapy. And I think if it had worked out fabulously, then maybe we would have continued, but John's got his solo thing happening at the moment, and I've obviously still got mine. So. Well,
and finally, there was another story in a well-known national newspaper that said you were joining Duran Duran, of all people. Was there any truth in that? Were you asked?
No comment. You can't believe everything you read in the papers, is all I can say, you know. I mean, there was a lot, it went kind of nationwide press, obviously. It was a good couple of weeks, it was quite a laugh.
Well, all I can say is if you had been approached to join Duran Duran, you must have been the only person who would have played in Magnum and Duran Duran. Yes, there's quite a big difference in image there between the two.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, thanks for stopping by today, Robin. I look forward to your album coming out. And will there be some live shows, do you think, in this country, in Europe?
Yeah, within this country, I think. Even if we don't have the deal, I think we're going to go out in maybe February, something like that.
Well, we can take a look at your Heartline video now. You mentioned earlier that Vince Neil's going to be starring in a film version of the Cinderella fairy tale, but looking at this, you could probably do like a rock version of Camelot, I would have thought, with riding horses and stuff.
Yeah, anything for a change, eh?
That's right. Here we go, this is Heartline. Thanks, Robin.
Great.